So for the next part of leading us through the next part of our presentation will be Steve McDonald. Steve is the Vice President of Technology Resources at Achieva in Greater Pittsburgh. Steve?
Hello. It's always good when the microphone works for the guy who's in charge of the AV, right? So thanks for coming today. I know it's Friday afternoon, so we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to play a little bit of Jeopardy later on with the panel up here. But I wanted to take some time just to kind of talk about how we got to this point. Most of you may remember about a little over a year ago, we started using Google Groups for some listservs. After working out some small kinks in the beginning, we've really started to have an open line of communication electronically where local execs, state execs can directly reach out and contact everybody else in our network. And that's a really big thing for us because that was something we used to have in the past and we lost. And it's kind of a way for us to continue our networking when we're not in person and reach a lot of people at one time. So I did want to ask if Judy Westick was here. Oh, there you go. Basically, the genesis of this whole topic started with an email posted by Judy back in late January. Is it January? So Judy had a question about what other chapters we're doing relative to starting businesses to provide community-based jobs for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities and using it as a way to raise money for other parts of your organization as a profit center. So NCE Steering Committee had a retreat in Las Vegas in January, and this actually ended up being one of the major strategic points that we wanted to talk about. So as a result of Judy's submission, we had about 50 different emails go back and forth. So we actually created a separate Google group for that, and there's a little silver bowl on the front table. So there's a listserv for this. There are 60 people on the listserv currently. I would ask if you are interested in sharing or learning more information about starting businesses at your chapter, to just drop a card in there before you leave, and we'll make sure you get added to the listserv. So with that in mind, so we put together this session, but we're also doing a session, actually quite a few sessions down in New Orleans. So I'm going to turn this over to Carrie Guyton, who is going to give you a little bit of information about that before we get started.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Carrie Guyton. I am Vice Chair of NCE, and I am in charge of the NCE pre-conference for convention. And since employment has been so important for everybody, the group and the committee of which Steve is a part decided that we were going to continue the discussion with the pre-conference, and everybody should have flyers on their table about the pre-conference. And just wanted to give a quick plug for that. We have a couple great keynote speakers. One is Andrea Chen. She's CEO of Propeller. It is a nonprofit in New Orleans, and they're an incubator for social enterprise. So we were trying to get somebody outside the disability field to come and give us some tips and some ideas and all the things you need to have in place in order to do that. And then the next keynote will be Kevin Crossley from Herkimer Arc, and he is an experienced professional, and he creates business enterprises for generating profit and trying to look beyond Medicaid waiver services and other options for generating funds for your organization. So that will be the first day. This is a little unique because we have 2 half days instead of a full day. So that will be on the first half day. And then that next day, we're going to have a distinguished panel of chapter leaders of the ARC who are doing different things around employment. And it's not necessarily just social enterprise, so it will be a broad range of different employment and training opportunities. But we know supported employment is not the only option for people, and it doesn't work for everybody. So trying to get a broad range of folks who can share different things with us. And you have an opportunity to break up into small groups and really get to talk to the people you want to talk to and ask questions and get details. So we're really excited about that. So we do hope that you'll join us in New Orleans for the pre-conference. And I'll turn it back over to,
Carrie, can you start us off by picking one of our categories here and get us started?
Yes, I will do. And you would be who for 10, please.
Okay, you would be who for 10. Okay, Jennifer, you're up.
Oh, I would be Jennifer Lassiter. I'm the Executive Director at the Paxton campus of Loudoun in Leesburg, which is in Northern Virginia. Loudoun County, the wealthiest county in the entire nation, which means that fundraising is super hard for me. Truly. But business is respected. So we run 5 different businesses with the Arc of Loudon. 3 of them are vocational training sites, and 2 of them are social enterprise profitable businesses that our guys work at and make money for us to do more things. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you. And my name is Steve McDonald. I am the Vice President of IT at the Chief in Pittsburgh. You guys probably see me running around doing all the microphones and the projectors, so they actually gave me a microphone this time, so that's could be potentially dangerous. So with that, I will now pick the next clue off the board here. We'll go back to home, and I will go with, and you would be who for $20. And it's Charles Brewer.
I'm Charles Brewer. I'm Executive Director of Arc Gateway, located in Pensacola. We have a number of businesses. We have a light manufacturing operation where we do like survey stakes and some concrete products. We have a plant nursery. We have a certified shredding operation. We have an enclave with a local manufacturing company, and we also have a couple of contracts with the Department of Transportation to do some janitorial and maintenance type work. And honestly, I volunteered to speak at every session, but I know it was just warm up here.
So, Charles, before we move on and have you select another clue, what's the best thing about having a business at your chapter?
Best thing about having a business? We use businesses to employ approximately 220 of our clients. So we're trying to make a profit, but it's not necessarily paramount to our effort. So it's the adult day training that comes along with employing the clients.
Okay. On the other side of the coin, what's the worst thing? Or the most difficult thing? Maybe worse than the worst.
You got to understand my perspective here. It's I came out of private industry for 44 years, and I've worked 19 months at the Arc. It's a long story how I got here, but we're not going to go into that. But we have a lot of people that are running businesses that are wonderful direct care people, but they're horrible business people. Sorry. I mean, if I tell you, if I ask you how you're going to increase your revenue, and you turn around and tell me, I don't know anything about marketing. Don't try that where I came from. So.
Okay. Could you go ahead and select another clue off the board?
What we're doing for 10?
Okay.
Oh, and who would you be for
30.
30?
There we go. There. We're good on the fly. I'll figure it out. Okay. Ken.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ken Singer, Executive Director of Berkshire County Arc, and that's in Western Massachusetts, as far west as you can go. We're celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. We serve about 700 people and employ about 640. And we have a budget of $28 million. And I know there are people out there that read the program. I'm sure you all read it, right? And it said $24 million. I'm really not lying to you. I just wanted to share with you that Massachusetts just finally, after fighting for 30 years, passed a rate system. And in 1 month, our budget went up $4 million in our residential programs. So let's hear it from Massachusetts. These are good things that happen. And so I thought I'd mention, we have a wide array of services: residential, supported living, day rehabilitation programs, family support, and we have a large supported employment program. And in addition, we have zip and sort mail services, which we started in 1998. And if you watch closely for 30 seconds, you can hear all about zip and sort mail services.
Oh, here we go.
I hope.
Zip and sort mail services, the largest mail service business in Western Massachusetts, maintains an integrated work setting for employees. We use state-of-the-art automated equipment to satisfy our customer base of nearly 400 local, national, and international companies. Customers of Zip and Sort range from schools, colleges, and universities to industries and nonprofit organizations. Zip and Sort Mail Services helps its customers control their mailing
you more about it as we go along.
So Ken, what's the best thing about having a business at your chapter?
Well, I think there are three things I put down here. Meeting our mission to provide community employment. We truly become a member of this community and are seen as part of the community, and it helped close our shelter workshop in 1998.
And what's the worst thing?
I think the worst thing is balancing the needs of trying to run a business and make money, and still meeting all the human service requirements that the state put on you and finding that balance. I think it's really difficult with your employees.
And would you please make another selection from the board?
Who would you be for 40?
For 40. Kevin McDonald.
Hi, Kevin McDonald, CEO for the ARC of Los Angeles and Orange Counties. Great to be here. A shout out to the first timers, because I am a 22nd timer, believe it or not. And it is the most profitable business I have is coming to summer training every single year. So please come back and join us as we do this. And don't forget the Trinity, which is summer training, convention, and public policy. If you hit all three, you're in the know in the ARC. So anyway, that's my plug for that. But yeah, 22 years coming to summer training. And it's been a pleasure and learned just an awful lot from my colleagues here. I think I was actually being on the panel. I run the ARC in Los Angeles. We run about 14 programs and services, day, work, a whole variety of things. A big emphasis on our employment center and on what we call employment preparation services. A couple of years ago, we had an opportunity, after a lot of research, we were frustrated with the unemployment rate for people with disabilities of being about 85%. And we said we had to do something different. We had an offer to buy a franchise, and we looked at that because we wanted to buy a retail franchise which would employ more people with disabilities compared to a donut shop or something which just employ a few people. So we decided, we did some research, and a friend came up to us with an offer we couldn't refuse, and we bought a franchise called Just a Buck. It's very similar to a Dollar Tree, and there's about 25 of them based out of New York. They're the franchisor, and the ARC bought it. And we started 2 years ago. I did a presentation to NCE, so we just wrapped up year 2 with that. And right now it employs 5 people with developmental disabilities, all at minimum wage. And so that's why I'm on the panel to discuss what would you do if you wanted to buy a franchise and how would that work out. Thanks.
What's the best part of having a business at your chapter and the worst part?
It has provided a great deal of excitement for our ARC, for our funders, for grant people, that we're doing something a little bit different and off the charts.
And the difficult thing?
Cash.
And last but not least, can I take another count?
How about you would be who for 50?
Okay.
And that would be me. I have a terrible voice today, I'm sorry, but I think I can be heard. I'm Cliff Tosher. Excuse me, I'm the Executive Director for ARC of Greater New Orleans. We've been there since 1953. We serve children and adults, a variety of different programs, from Family Service Coordination, which is basically a case management service for families of children birth to 3, respite, personal care services, supported living services, supported employment, and what we don't offer, we don't operate any group homes. We never went into that line of service, and we serve 4 parishes. Everyone else in this country, that's county. That 4th one is just really one that's set to open in August. Our community's grown to the north shore of our Lake Pontchartrain, and so we intend to grow with it. We currently provide or offer 5 social enterprises. We have Vintage Garden Farms, all sustainably grown produce. We sell at markets, farmers markets, local chefs. We also use that in our Vintage Garden Kitchen, where we make a line of 22 healthy soups. Again, we sell those out of a walk-up window, but we also have a restaurant in downtown New Orleans that I hope you all will visit if you come to New Orleans. We have a janitorial service that was our first enterprise, and we also do something very unique to New Orleans, although I think John Charles does this too, is we recycle everything that comes off Mardi Gras floats. Very interesting, very unique, but interesting and fun project, and very highly integrated. We also run the child care center, typical child care center. Some of the kids have delays, but very few. Basically that's it.
What's the best part of having a business in Chicago?
It's kind of fun. You know, it brings me into a lot of different areas that I don't know anything about, but have to learn real quick. It's really introduced our organization to a number of different networks. We came back from Katrina and decided we were going to be green like the rest of the community. We wanted to be healthy, and these were trends in New Orleans at the time, and so we went those directions. You know, it's just it's a challenge. It is fun, and it provides a lot of work for people. That's really the mission is really the foremost thing, I think.
Okay. And the challenging part?
I think what Ken had to say, it's just difficult meeting all the human service demands and competing with your counterparts in business, because they don't have those demands, and we have some pretty strict rules, so it's hard to keep up.
Okay. So we're going to start digging into some of the categories, which are, we're doing what, me worry, important stuff, success and failure. But before we move on, there's one thing that every good game show must have, and that is a buzzer. So we are limiting responses to 1 minute. So Barry, would you be my buzzer for the responses?
Pay attention.
There you go. So I'm going to trust technology in Barry, and we're going to move forward. And Cliff, why don't you just there and pick the first question?
We're doing what for 10?
Good. Yeah, we're going to have Jennifer read the questions for everybody, and then we'll go through the responses from there.
Why did your chapter decide to start a business, and what is the purpose of that business?
Okay, in the late 1990s, we decided to move our vocational services to community-based employment. That included supported work, vocational evaluation, and school and career services. Our supported work program, we had about 100 people that we started placing into jobs in the community. Our VocaVal system, we set up vocational evaluation sites throughout the community of businesses. We now have about 50 of them, so if someone's interested in a certain area, we don't do it in a little room, we go actually out on the job and do it. And we work with school career services, with schools. I think there's 11 school systems that we're working with presently. In 1998, we officially closed our workshop and sent everyone out to the community. But there were still a few people that we really felt weren't ready for supported employment, so we said, what are we going to do with them? What can we do that would be meaningful? So we decided to open Zip and Sort Mail Services. The purpose is to employ those we serve in an integrated business, to run a profitable business and give support to the agency, and to provide a service to the local community. Today we're the largest mail house in Western Massachusetts, and we have over 30 employees that process about 1,200 pieces of mail per year. And we provide a service that saves companies money. They do not use us because there's too much money involved with people's mail because we're a charity or they want to help our agency. They feel good about that, but they do it because we provide a good service and it saves them money. Anything on that? How do you do, Barry? Barry?
No, I'm only 15, but what?
Okay. Barry's pretty generous. He's not extra vexed, so.
That's Louisiana time.
That's Louisiana time. That's good. That usually starts late, though, right?
And we'll go to what we're doing in 20.
Well, Kevin, we're gonna have 2 responses on each question, so we're gonna turn it back to Kevin for the same question.
We decided to do kind of an opportunity knocked on our door about the franchise opportunity. We've been doing support employment for an awful long time, as many people have, and we wanted this opportunity to take control of it. So we bought our own business and then slid people into the business. We did it for expansion of support employment, a great training ground for support employment, and also tried to get an alternative funding source, as we all know, to decrease our reliance on state funding. So that's why we looked into this, the whole project. We also knew the franchisor, we knew their intent with it, and then we spent a lot of time, about 1.5 years, doing research, saying, would this be the best fit for our ARC? We knew retail because we've been in the thrift store business for many years. we closed that business off, and this one has taken its place as a place for training and for support employment.
Okay. Make another selection from the board, Tim?
How about we're doing what for 20?
Doing what for 20?
Why did you to choose?
Oh, well, you know, hey, it's late at night, I was thinking ahead.
That was not Alex Trebek. Why did you choose the business that you ultimately selected?
And for a response, we'll go to Cliff first.
Okay. As I said, when we came, some of these things were in the works before Katrina, but Katrina was a very significant turning point for us. And when we came back, as I mentioned earlier, there were certain things happening in New Orleans. The trends, so to speak, were to be green because it was just what was happening, and people wanted it, and we recognized that. We also recognized a focus on just health and fitness, and so these kinds of things steered us away from some of the things we were doing and into some different things. The businesses that I mentioned, I left one out. It was a grounds maintenance, large commercial grounds maintenance business that was operational before Katrina. We went right back to that because it was a lot of work, and it was really what brought us back and allowed us to come back. So we continued to do that. But really, when we looked at other things, we were looking for things that were going to provide employment opportunities within the skill range and support needs that we could provide for the people that we support. We wanted things to be labor intensive. You know, I guess last but not least was we wanted to make money, but I have to say that's not really been the focus of what we do. The grounds maintenance has taken a slide. That was our cash cow. Others are really about work and about mission fulfillment.
Okay. And Ken, why did you ultimately choose the business that you selected, or something like that?
Well, when we went to close our sheltered workshop, we had a few big mail jobs for local business. So we said, well, maybe that's a good area for us to look at. So we went out and we spoke with existing business, we spoke with the post office, we spoke with the Chamber of Commerce, we assessed the individuals that we had to see whether it was a good fit for them, and they had interest in it, and we found it was something we wanted to proceed with. We then went on and did a little more research, and we found that 3% of the mail in Massachusetts was going through our county, but most of it was being sent out of our county because there was no processing being done within our post office. So we went to the post office and we sort of became partners with them, because what we found out was post offices, like any other business, and they have a vested interest in keeping mail in their postal region because that's jobs for them. So they really encouraged us to move on and expand our business, which we did, and we did it slowly. We started with small mail processing. We got the support from a lot of local companies. We went to shrink wrapping, fulfillment, which became a big thing, metering, tabbing, inserting, and eventually first-class pre-sort. We looked at first-class pre-sort, which is one of the biggest things we do, and found out there was no first-class pre-sort between Worcester and where we were. That's half of the state of Massachusetts. People were sending their first-class mail to Connecticut to be processed. So we said, we may have a corner on the market here. So we went to these big businesses that had first-class pre-sort, like the insurance companies, the banks, and the hospital. They were sending their mail to Connecticut to be sorted. They committed to doing it for a year if we bought a machine. You got to understand, the machine was $400,000. So we had to do a lot of research, which I'll talk about in another question, to do it. But we felt there was a void in this community that we could fill, and we did.
Okay, another timer, okay. And can you pick another question, please?
We're doing what for 30?
Doing what for 30?
What is the business structure for your enterprise? Is it for-profit, non-profit, LLC, a subsidiary? And what is its relationship to your chapter?
Charles.
Well, all of our enterprises are included within the structure of the 501c3. It is the Art Gateway. And its relationship is that they're wholly owned. We don't do any partnerships with anybody. I am told that there is a problem if you have excessive profits in your in business enterprises in a not-for-profit. It hasn't really come up yet. Okay.
Okay, Kevin?
For the business structure, I was given all sorts of advice. Like Steve would say, we have many corporations at Achievement, just do another corporation. We decided not to. We looked at the LLC, what would be the best to protect the ARC. Smartest thing we did was hire an attorney that was referred to us out of Beverly Hills. And he went through a whole thing of a test of what makes it an unrelated business income. And we went through all this criteria, and the ARC met it, and a couple things. The test was, is it a trade or business? Yes. Is it regular and carried on? Yes, because it's all year long. Is the activity related to the exempt purpose of the ARC? And of course it was. Is there a substantial relationship with the mission of the ARC? Yes, there was. Is it on a scale not larger than necessary? Are you opening up 20 franchises which have nothing to do with the ARC? Or are you just doing one, or how many are you doing? So a lot of those things came. It really came from good attorney's advice, and we decided to just make it another department at the ARC. We made it very, very simple. It was just part of our organization, and that's how the franchise came out.
Okay. Can you make another selection from the board?
Sure. How about what we're doing for 40?
What we're doing for 40. There you go.
Fire fan.
Come on down.
Where did you find the expertise and startup capital to develop and run your business?
Hey, I'm going to focus on our kitchen and our soups and our restaurant. Although I think I would say that, I forget who it was earlier today, said you don't necessarily want to hire from within and promote from within, because the people generally don't have the level of skill or expertise that you need as a business. We learned that a long time ago the hard way. And so when we came back from Katrina, we were in the food business forever. We were the surrogate school way back when. We had, the steam tables and the cafeteria people, and so we changed over time. We turned that into a snack bar. We operated a restaurant in one of our communities a while back and learned that we are not restaurateurs. We didn't do it well at the time, and so, but we still wanted to take all of that history and knowledge and move forth with it. So what we did a little market research, very simple stuff, nothing fancy, and realized that really there was no one in town producing soups. And if they weren't necessarily healthy. This is New Orleans. And so it's got a lot of butter and stuff in there. And so we created a line. Our intent was to create a line of very healthy soups and do it in that green manner of packaging those in mason jars that are recyclable. And so that's what we embarked on. We hired a chef who had run restaurants in New Orleans, very capable. He came on as a 6-month consultant. His final project was to hire the permanent chef, who is still with us, and he created the recipes. So I think, in terms of startup, we self-funded. It wasn't anything like Ken's $400,000 piece of equipment. We had some stuff. We had enough funds to go into and get the other things. So.
And Kevin?
Everyone knows retail. If you're a shopper, you know retail. Every one of my staff members say they're expert in retail. Anyway, so we had to carve that out. First thing we did was get a good attorney. Everybody needs that. Also, we researched like crazy. We brought on a couple of board members who were experts in retail to find the right location and help us with that whole process. And then we hired a 40-year veteran who had just retired from retail to run our store on opening day. So that was all helpful to us. When it comes to capital, the money that we use is from a bequest, and the bequest came from a gentleman who's an entrepreneur by trade, so that we felt very comfortable using those funds for this. But a couple of my friends in the past couple of years have come up saying, hey, we might do this and we're going to borrow money to do this. And just our words of caution is don't borrow money. If you don't have the cash to do this adventure, be careful. If you're going to borrow money and then have to pay it back. And don't risk your whole agency on a proposition like this. So it's really a lot of caution to it. But we had the cash available. available to us, and that's why we went forward with it.
And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're gonna pick, we're doing what for 50?
Good job, Sam.
There we go. Moving right along.
That would be me.
How were you able to convince your board that you needed to establish a business?
Well, our board was committed to closing our workshop, and I think that was a big thing. And so they really wanted to do something with us, and they supported the idea of opening a business. We hired a consultant to do a business plan for us. We put together a business advisory council, which we use for our supporter employment as well. These are leaders throughout the community and business world. And we got the support of our local developmental service office and mass rehab office. And there was a lot of support to do it. And being that we had been doing some mailing, it wasn't that big a jump. The big jump was the $400,000 for the first-class pre-sort. And we spent a year researching that. Okay, we took the board to Connecticut, which was an hour and a half away, to see how it was done. We showed them that there was no competition, that we really had the support of the post office, and we had the commitment from 5 major businesses in town that were sending their mail to Connecticut to do the first-class pre-sort. How first-class pre-sort works, if you're one of our customers, we come to your building, your office, like the hospital, we pick up your mail every day, we take it back to our building, we process it, we deliver it to the post office, you haven't left, and you save 10 cents per letter. First-class pre-sort is something that these companies really wanted us to do. So they were willing to give us a chance and commit to it. And then we took a loan from the Mass Development Corporation for the $400,000, which, by the way, is paid off. And it was 1 year doing it, and it has been very successful.
And Charles?
We have just, I think, a little bit different approach to this. We have a board committee that meets every month. It's called New Opportunities. And anybody can bring an idea to that committee for a new business. And so getting board sign-off is not that hard because we've already done some of the groundwork at the board level. Our CFO is part of that committee, and she does the pro formas on it. And so for us, getting it through the board is just not that hard.
Okay. And can you make the next selection?
I don't know. What me worry for 10?
What me worry for 10? Notice we have lower dollar values than Jeopardy. That's because we're not for profit. That's you.
How closely did you follow the business plan you developed for each enterprise?
Let me say this about the business plan and following it, and I'm going to talk maybe more in a minute here. If you're listening to that voice in your head that says, build it and they'll come, there's another little voice underneath there that's saying, you're going to be unemployed. Because if you haven't done a business plan, if you don't know who your competitors are, if you don't know what the government regulation and the possibilities of government regulation are, if you don't know how you're going to market whatever it is you're going to produce, you're really out on a limb. I mean, so how closely do you follow the business plan? It's more necessary that you have one and that it's comprehensive. I mean, there was a business plan for D-Day. I mean, it didn't necessarily work out the way they thought it was, but they had things written out and they thought through things, and then you're a lot more nimble and you have a lot better possibility of reacting if you go through the business planning process.
Okay.
Well, I wish I had Kevin's benefactor. That would have been helpful, but we didn't. I think we followed our business fairly closely. You know, I think the biggest thing was to build the business slowly. And don't try and do too much at once. Only do what you could do. And we hired a knowledgeable business person to run it, because, you know, what do I know about the mail business, honestly? I know, when I talk about human services, you know, we could meet over a drink. I know about the mail business now, but I didn't know about it, and that was kind of scary for me. So we hired someone that had some knowledge of the business community, and that was a big help to us. And we worked on our relationships. I told you about the post office, that was major. We worked with our local politicians. We even actually got a $50,000 earmark from the legislature. to help get the thing going, and that was important. We expanded services as the demand called for, and that's how we went to first-class presort. That was after 2 years, and after we knew that it was really feasible to do it. We rented space before we purchased. We rented space for 4 years because I was saying that we cannot invest in a building until we know. And in 2002, we bought a 17,000 square foot building, which has served us very well. We just developed a strong marketing plan, and we work closely with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Can you make a selection off the board?
What we were for 20.
What you were
What keeps you awake at night relative to your business?
Most of our businesses are okay. We did start one. We went through the whole planning process. We took our first venture into a standalone retail business. It's a gift shop. We ran a gift shop before at a hospital, and we're still running it. It's profitable. What we found was that the customer base that we thought we had was not there. We've got 400 people that pay to be members of our organization. We've got 1,200 followers on Facebook. You'd think a couple of them would come by and buy something from our gift shop. But they've stayed away in droves so far. And so the business plan we had a business plan, the business plan that I talked about, and we're reevaluating that now to move to more of a, we may not have the full service that we have now. It may be more towards around holidays. Okay.
And Kevin?
What keeps me awake at night is, will we be broken into? And will there be a riot in Long Beach? We've had a couple of those things already. That's why I have like 8 cameras in my phone, so I could look at any time to see how we're doing. That keeps me awake at night, and then also, how do we bring it to that break-even point? And you go back to all the things you do in human services, but then you have to worry on the side is, how do I get someone to move from making a $4 purchase to making a $5 purchase? And that is the nature of retail, 24 hours a day, and how we do that.
Okay. And another selection?
I guess we're going to what be worried for 30?
Is transportation an issue for the individuals with IDD that work at your business? And if so, how do you address it?
It is an issue. It's always been an issue. We're in an urban area, and it's still an issue. As I said, we serve different parishes. Our transportation, although they call it Regional Transit Authority, isn't really regional. They don't like to cross parish lines. They don't do it well. They're not well coordinated. And even if you can do that, a lot of the thoroughfares really are taking a risk of crossing, especially if you have some condition that makes you a little slower than you need to be. What we do is we do provide some transportation to bring people in. Most of the time, we try not to do that. We look for national supports. We look for supports that are funded through personal care or direct support professionals that are available to provide some of that transportation. And what we also do is we will shuttle people. We'll go between. We have several locations, so we'll have a group going to one location. We'll bring them out to the next one to get them to the work sites. When you do that, you have to be careful that you don't start work at that pickup point. You got to start at your work site, or else you're leaving yourself open for a DOL hit. We do at night. We have a janitorial business. We do drop off some of our folks. We have one crew that we drop off at night because the transportation just isn't reliable. And then when we can, if we have a work site that people can get to directly, we really encourage them to just meet us there. So, but a lot of times I think we're confused because people are confused because we have an urban transit system that it really works for us, and it doesn't.
Charles?
The state of Florida will actually reimburse us for getting our folks to and from work. So we have one of our lines of business, I don't really consider it a line of business, it's more service, but is transportation. And we own a dozen or so vans. Some of them we got through grants, most of them we purchased ourselves. Some of them wheelchair accessible, and some not. But it's actually, I'll take everybody. It's a profitable deal for us. We pay, but the state of Florida pays about the trip, and if I can put 10 people in that 10-person van, I'll make good money.
Okay, and another selection off the board, please.
What me worry for $40?
What was the biggest risk you took when you started a business?
That might be
That's
it.
right.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a good answer. I think, there was a lot at stake here. We invested time, we invested money, and most of all, we invested our reputation. Because we started a mail business, nobody knew us for our mail. People, if they knew us for people with disabilities. I think that was a huge risk. The first year our goal was to have, the first year we had 30-something customers, and our goal was to build it up in the following year to 55 customers. Today we have 400 customers. So there was a risk, but we made it work. The others I've already told you about, $400,000 machine, purchasing a new building, and again, balancing the needs of the business with human services, I think is really major.
And Cliff?
I think, just failure in general, failure to meet our goals of jobs or financial goals. But I would say that, you got to take that risk. Risk is a part of it. Failure is probably a part of it. We have failed. I think the risk there is not recognizing your failure early enough and moving on and doing something else and trying to keep this thing running. I mentioned our restaurant earlier. It started off with a bang, and then it dived, and we kept it open probably longer than we should have, and moved on to something else. I think the hardest part for me when something fails, and some of it isn't necessarily our fault. We lost a couple of huge grounds maintenance contracts last year because of politics, and the layoffs. The people losing their jobs both with and without disabilities. That was the hardest thing I think we faced forever. It's hard to deal with, both from a staff position that having to do that, the staff who lost their jobs, and then the individuals with disabilities who lost their jobs. Some found others, and others moved into other programs if that's what they wanted to do. So sometimes I feel like I've used the whack-a-mole kind of analogy that there's always something popping up, and there's always a risk involved. It's just part of the business.
Okay, next selection.
What me worry for 50?
What me worry for 50.
What are you doing to prepare for the impact of recent blah, 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 blah letters, issues relative to your enterprises? There's always letters.
First, I read the report that Peter and his staff put out on the new CMS rules back in February. Thank you, Peter, for that. About what's coming down. The other thing is just trying to keep ahead of the curve. We all know what they're looking at in the future, and it's people making at minimum wage or above, and that's how we built this program. Also looking at your ratios, how many people with or without disabilities in the same workplace, and also what duties are they performing in. And with the retail store, we had a great advantage. So we have 3 non-disabled staff, 5 people with developmental disabilities, and we made sure they're cross-trained in all different areas of the retail store. And then we're trying to do minimum wage, but also a bump above minimum wage when we do it.
Okay, we're in pretty good shape. Katrina, as disastrous as it was an opportunity for us. And upon our return, we closed our shelter workshops. We moved forward. Everyone in our enterprises earns federal minimum wage of $7.25 or more. The threat there is that that's going to be raised. We are Louisiana, so don't know how fast that'll happen, but, you know, we do pay federal minimum wage or greater. I'd say probably 80% of what we do, because it's not only going to be our businesses, it's going to be, you know, in Medicaid language rehabilitation, and the services that we offer there. And again, I think we're probably about 80% there, so it's a matter of refining both the enterprises and the other options that people have. We are looking seriously at our janitorial business. I'm not a particular fan of it. I know it has to be done. I don't think it's a very edifying position for some of our folks. It's not highly integrated by any means. It's the nature of the beast. But we're looking at other options for those folks that we think would work better. So we are beginning to take a good look at it. And we're down, you know, you get down to that 20% or so, and that's really where it got really hard to figure out how to put it in a position that'll pass the muster. So right now we're heavily into that planning. We're looking at some of our businesses. I mentioned we had 5. We're looking at the possibility of reducing or eliminating some of those so we can grow the others.
Okay, so we're about halfway through and we haven't found a daily double yet, so we have 2 daily doubles out there, so. Let's go take another one.
All right, what me worry for, what is it?
Nope.
Important stuff.
There you go. All right, stuff for 10. One thought it'd been funny if it was a daily double, how about that?
How much money / capital did you invest to start the business?
None of your business. You know, it's a good question, and let me just clarify. I don't in any way want to represent Justin Buck or push Justin Buck. Just consider our talk here about a franchise and a retail franchise, and not one specific brand. Because we also looked at UPS and looking at other franchises, and we continue to keep our eyes and ears open for opportunities as a franchise. But how much did we invest is a good question, because we'll get you in early with our franchise fee is only this amount. And every different group has a different one. Now, if you want to get a Dunkin' Donuts, I believe it's up to $1 million, which I really wanted. But anyway, the franchise fee for those different groups, it all changes. But when they offer you $20,000, $50,000 for franchise fees, it's really just to get you in the door. The other expenses we had, though, renovation of a store. We converted a Blockbuster video type outlet, and that we put in about $90,000 just in renovations to make it look like a store. Product is going to crush it when you put that outlayer product in the store. You know, we spent $75,000 just on putting $1 products out there. And that's just to get you started. So if that's capital, I'm not quite sure, because you know, we'll get the money back from it. And all your displays and everything else. So you got to be willing to, and again, like I said earlier, be cautious. Do you have the cash to do this, to put out what we figured out to be about $200,000? Nicely is we were pretty much on budget with our predictions, because we had some good help making that happen.
You know, it varies, the capital investment, based on the kind of operation you're going to run. I mentioned the retail operation that we have, the gift shop, and we already had a building, so we had a few renovations costs. I had maintenance people on staff, so they did most of the work. You switch from there to our NAID certified shredding operation. It's pretty capital intensive. Besides the building that it's in, which is a huge warehouse looking thing, which we already had, the capital equipment, we made a decision to just do shredding at our building. Cost us about $50,000 for all the equipment. The reason we did that, because a mobile shredder, even a used one's like $170,000. So, you know, the best thing I can say about this is to go out and look. I mean, there's grants available. We look for people on our board that will help us get into these businesses. It just varies business by business. You've got to evaluate each one.
Okay. Next choice.
Important stuff for 20.
There you go.
There we go.
What role does this business play in your chapter's vocational programs?
It actually is part of our vocational programs. It's not a separate business, even though it is a business. It's a separate cost center within the agency. does have a separate cost center, as I said, and it does bring money in the agency. Whether there's a profit or a loss, it still throws about $80,000 a year into our G&A, our administrative. So it's helping certainly with that, and it has shown a profit, so it's giving more money on top of that. So it's definitely part of our vocational program.
For us too, it is our vocational service, that and the general supported employment service. It provides employment. It provides employment for the most part, not exclusively. Some of it's by choice by some of the folks that work with us, but a lot of times it's for people who have had difficulties elsewhere because medical conditions, behavioral issues, whatever. It could be just simple as transportation. So it's a great help for those folks to be employed. We're able to provide those extra supports, a little more patience, a little more support. We employ about 75 people right now. That I think a good number of those would probably have a difficult time doing some other things. I think one of the most important factors is that it's a safety net that we have for people that are working elsewhere. If something happens, their job, and they rely on it because they're living semi-independently, then we do bring them in and we'll give them a job until we can get something back out for them. So I think that's a critical feature for us.
Okay. And let me guess, important stuff for 30.
You got it.
There we go.
Is this an integrated business under the new HCBS final rule? And how are the employees with IDD paid?
Short answer, yes, and we pay according to federal wage and hour laws. Some of our contracts are governed by Florida, which has its own minimum wage. Some of them are governed by federal wage and certainly, yes, we do still have most of our jobs. It's a minimum wage. It's just a fact of life where we are. I mean, for our area of the country, fine theory, a lot of my employees are making minimum wage, much less times. So, I probably $8 an hour in New York City or Boston is nothing. But like I said, a lot of my employees are on that now. So we're in a different situation. I realize we're under pressure to change. We're looking at how we can change. That's what I can say.
It really depends on the specific enterprise. Some are completely integrated. It's not a big deal. It's just part of the business. It'd be like the restaurant downtown. It's in a food court. Lots of mix of folks. Janitorial, I mentioned that it's not. And so that's of concern. We've done some interesting things with our recycling of Mardi Gras, where we have a lot of volunteers come in. It's really a nice mix of people. We bring in people with volunteers without disabilities, and then we bring in others with disabilities that work side by side. We don't pay any sub-minimum wages, as I mentioned, and that's kind of how we do it with a lot of what we're doing is we try to find a way. We still have some concerns, but I think we're well on our way to making sure that we're going to meet all those standards that are coming our way.
And next selection.
Important stuff for 40.
Given the income limits mandated for Social Security and MA, do you need to limit the hours you provide each month to your individuals with IDD that work at your business?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. There we go.
I will say that when it has been a problem, our agency developed a pooled trust, which allows people to put money into it and not lose their benefits. So that's been really helpful. And a few times it is a problem.
Okay. All right. Make a selection.
Important stuff for 50. There is one.
Important stuff for 50. Okay, this is the first daily double. Hey, it took a long time. Okay. All I did want to say one thing as we went forward. All the questions that have been addressed by the panel today were submitted through the listserv, and we kind of consolidated them and prioritized them based on the experience of the group. But we wanted to give you guys an opportunity now, and at the end, if time allowed, 4 questions. So does anybody like to ask a question of the group? And we're going to switch microphones here real quick. And when you ask a question, please identify yourself so we know who you are.
I'm Greg Falk with the Arc of Spokane, Washington. And in our county, and not the state, I'm not clear, we cannot employ someone and be paid to support them. So either if we support them through a supportive employment contract, we have to find jobs elsewhere. And if we employ them ourselves, we cannot be paid. So I'm just curious, is that true for you, or can you receive dollars to support people that you in fact are employing in one of your businesses?
And we'll have 2 volunteers for this daily double, and we'll flip-flop on the next one. So
We do. We have Medicaid waiver funding, falls under generally a group employment model with a rate attached to it. It really, I think it's critical. I would have a hard time if I was operating under your rules.
I second that. We wouldn't be in operation with it. It would be much more difficult.
okay. Great. Thank you for your question. You want to pick the next one off the board?
Number 1 described.
Anything in success or failure is open.
Okay, well, how about for 30?
Oh, for 30. Okay, we're going to break the pattern. Get ready, guys.
How have other parts of your organization benefited from your businesses?
Flip for Kevin. One of you guys.
How have we benefited? You know, publicity is always good for the ARC. When you open up a new business, when you do something different, you advertise it like crazy to all segments. When the newspapers are calling saying, I heard you did something different besides the typical stuff. We want to do an article on that. You're employing people with disabilities. You're bringing in the assemblywoman and the congresswoman to come down to open up a store, do something different. So it really carries over there. For us in support employment, it has been a breakthrough for looking at how we do support employment. See, we're on the reverse, now we're the employer. And it's great to see how good are those job coaches, how good is that director of support employment, and how's that working. And also the preparation, it's an incredibly good training ground. So it carries over. Also a lot of enthusiasm for our staff. We use it as a tool to thank our staff. We send them all down there shopping and give them about 20 bucks and say, buy whatever you want, and they get 20 items.
There you go.
So we use it in different ways.
Again, I agree with Kevin on the publicity, just the public relations that we get from it. We're viewed as progressive and doing some different things, and it's well received. Most of what we do, all of what we do, we want to do with quality, and I think we have a good handle on that. And so I think that perception carries over both directions. But our businesses, if we present a professional image with good quality, I think that carries over to the rest of the organization. Before Katrina, very few people knew ARC of Greater New Orleans. Those that needed us, those that were also professionals, knew about who we were. Today, it's much different, and I think a lot of that came from our enterprises. People know us, and it's funny, you know, when I say now I work for ARC, they're referring to soup, beads, whatever, but they put the thing together. They make the connection. It's introduced us to a variety of new networks. I mentioned that green network and the urban farmers. Those are totally different people than we would have connected with before. And we get a lot of support from that community. And last, I think, you know, a lot of these businesses, the kitchen in particular, takes up a lot of space, and as such, it takes up a lot of allocated expenses. And so if those allocated expenses were being picked up by our business, it's going to be picked up somewhere else by the organization. So it's really something we look at in terms of our bottom line in those enterprises.
Okay. And now I'm going to pick another one.
Okay. Success and failure for 40, am I right?
Okay,
That works.
going out of order there.
What is the most successful business you started at your chapter, and what made it a success?
Charles, okay?
We have, Armstrong World Industries has a ceiling tile plant in Pensacola. And they send us ceiling tiles to their warehouse. They rent the warehouse. But we staff it. We take those ceiling tiles and we cut them into little blocks. They come 2 by 2, 2 foot by 2 foot. We cut them into little blocks. We package the similar ones together, and then we make a complete package of the different ceiling tiles that Armstrong produces. And what are we doing? Well, that's their marketing samples. And then we ship them all over the world. The day that I was there, we were preparing to ship them to Hong Kong. So it's been an excellent contract for us. And as the plant manager from Armstrong told me, the minimum wage on his plant floor is $30 an hour. So it's been a very good contract for them too. 2 more years, that contract it'll be its 30th anniversary. I'll mention one other business. We have a plant nursery. And this goes back to something I said before. We had some direct care people that were involved in the plant nursery. They kind of laid there for years. And then we hired a person with a degree in soil science, and it went a little bit up. And about 6 months ago, we hired a person that has a degree in horticulture. And besides having a degree in horticulture, she's a go-getter. And I'll say there's nothing like having somebody that knows what they're doing, okay?
We've only done one business, and that's Zip and Sort, and I think it's been a success. It provides employment for over 30 people. It brings funds to the agency. It's providing a needed service for 400 businesses. Helped close our sheltered workshop, and it's great networking for the agency. And we do, by the way, newsletters. We do ARC of Massachusetts' newsletter, and you can reach us at zipandsort.com. This is not a paid commercial.
And go make a selection. We have 3 left on the board.
Success and failure for 10. We do
10. Okay. No, we have 9.
How do you measure the success of your business?
You know, one of the measures of success for us, and I can give you all the data in the world, but our board is so into doing this, and I was pleasantly surprised with the board saying, is it going to work for support employment? Then we can do this franchise thing. Then we can own our own business. And their sole focus continues to be every board meeting, how are the folks doing who are employed there? Are they growing? Are they learning? Are they achieving? What about the other 12 people that are sent down there every single week for additional retail training in a live retail store? How are they succeeding? So from a board perspective, which is a really great change, because they're not asking me about the money first, they're asking about how's it going as a sort of program, so to speak, and that's going excellent in all facets. So we're thrilled. It's a stepping stone for support employment, because if they do really well at our store, they can go on to the Ross and the Targets of the world and be very well trained in those areas. They will be fast at setting up an end cap and know what an end cap is. And those are the things that we consider the successes of it. For the profit and loss, we're getting there. It's taking us a lot longer than we thought, and sales have to definitely increase more than projected. So the sales aren't that good, but from a programmatic standpoint, it's really doing well. So that's going to hold us on for a little bit longer.
Years ago, we learned about double bottom line accounting, and it's really been very helpful. Basically, what you're looking at is your business from on one side, as you would run a business, as you would run a janitorial business, for instance. What are the typical costs? What are the revenues, the expenses? On the other side of that equation, you're looking at some of the specific expenses in particular that you have because of your mission. You may be using more materials, you may need more supervision, you may need an extra vehicle, you may need extra equipment. And so when you take those two and you look at those, you can begin to tell where you're either making money or losing money. We introduced it to our board of directors a while back, and again in regards to our janitorial business, and that is not a profit center. But what it shows is that we might have lost $10,000 at a certain given point, and the question then becomes how many people are working. And when we say 20, it's no big deal. Just run with it. So it really helps your anyone really to understand that it's mission. In some cases, in many cases, it's what you're paying for. You know, I would caution anyone in regards to starting an enterprise to definitely don't start it if you're looking to make a profit right away, or if you're looking to make a profit. Period. Sometimes it's not going to happen. So that double bottom line accounting is very helpful. It's a very simple concept.
Okay, so we have 2 clues left: success and failure for 20 or 50.
Well, let's go with 20.
Okay.
Provide an example of a business that failed and tell us what you learned from that failure. And I thought I just handed that to you, Kevin.
Yeah, that was great. We failed in lots of different areas, not necessarily for a business. I can tell you a quick story though on this, because we haven't opened up that many to fail, but our thrift store business started going downhill. Our thrift store is located in South Central Los Angeles. So a few years ago, after 40 years and doing quite well in thrift store business, it was barely breaking even at that point. And the amount of work of running by ourselves, the thrift store business was quite overwhelming for us and took away from the ARC. So we decided to rent out the building, and then we had a renter for a little while, and then they left, and we tried to rent out a big building in South Central. We ended up, we're almost, in hindsight, well, the thrift store business failed, but then we sold the building for a ton of money. And then we walk away and put that into the ARC reserves for the future so we can take some more risks, some more challenges for the future. But I would have never guessed that the end of a thrift store business 5 years ago will result in such a large amount because, you know, an asset is an asset. So some of the critics of property management would say you should have kept it. So there's a little bit of balance there too.
What?
I didn't realize that. I'm 20? No, I'm not 20. That's Ken.
Actually, we had a change. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Because Ken hasn't had any experience in this area. So.
I can tell you how we failed because we failed a lot. You know, I mentioned our restaurant in one of our communities. It failed, and so you know, we learned from that that's not our business. It was how we ran it. It was the nature of the business. If you had 2 hours for lunch, you might get a meal. We were slow. We just and so you know what we learned is that we still had something to offer in that food industry, and we turned it into our soup business, which, you know, I think if you don't fail at something along the way, you're either really, really lucky, or you got a lot more smarts than I do. I think it's always been very helpful, as long as you learn from your mistakes and don't make the same ones over again.
Anybody have a 2-hour lunch experience today? No, that's pretty good. Okay, so we have 1 clue left, which is success and failure for 50. So let's go to that one, and we have our last daily double. So, question?
Yes, I have a question. If the people that work for you were here today, what would they say about what you've done in your business on their behalf?
We had an intern, autistic kid that worked in our horticulture area, and his mom would drop him off every day, and she wrote me a letter saying that in fact she'd never been to any business before where the employees all came in smiling, were glad to be there, and were happy. The other thing is every other Friday on payday, and remember we are sub-minimum wage for a lot of these jobs. Our clients are pretty happy about that. that they've done something that they feel good about themselves.
Anybody else?
Well, I would just agree with that. The people who were in our shelter workshop for many, many years and ended up at Zip and Sword loved it, and most of them are still there. There are a few that have gone on to competitive jobs in the community, but they love going there every day, and actually, we've had hardly any turnover since 1998. The staff, all employees. It's amazing how much people like working there.
Okay, so that's the final question through the board, but we're not done yet. Don't get excited here. So as you know, we weren't really keeping score, but hopefully I wanted to thank everybody on the panel before we move on. And I wanted to thank everybody who had provided questions and for the questions from the audience. So raise your hand if you watch Jeopardy. Okay. Dan, what's Jeopardy end with? After Double Jeopardy. We're not going to do Double Jeopardy. So we have to have Final Jeopardy. So, okay, so you watch Jeopardy, right? So you know the Jeopardy song, right? Okay, wow. Okay. Anybody else? Any volunteers for the Jeopardy song? Okay. I play, I don't sing, so that's my disclaimer on that one. But, we did want to finish with giving everybody on the panel a chance to kind of give, their one best piece of advice about starting a business at their chapter. So we'll end with that.
Thanks, Steve. When I saw all the internet chatter about this session coming up and people saying, how do you start a business? How do we make more money? I guess all I thought was, we have to move forward together. We have to take some chances. But there's no quick dollar out there. These things are highly risky. And is it really the focus of your heart? Is it that close to your mission that you want to do this? And do you have the skills? Like they say, stick to the knitting. Drucker or Covey said that. One of those guys said that. But stick to your knitting. What do you know best, and what can you do as you move forward? So it's just cautious, because we're all desperate for a dollar. But sometimes I can write a grant and get a $50,000 grant faster than I can run some other operation for a year. So there's that balance in there, and that's just a little bit of caution to the wind as we get excited about this to put some perspective behind it. Click.
I'll second that, but I also would say again to hire the right people. If you're running a food business, hire people with that background. If you're running a janitorial business, hire janitors. Hire people that have the skills that you want coming from the business enterprise that you're developing.
Be careful, go slowly, and stick to your mission.
I think the key word here is it's a business. You've got to treat it like a business. Whether you're starting it to employ clients or whether you're starting it to try to make money, it's still a business. I mean, it's just where the bottom line you want to come out to. It's still a business. The other thing I would echo is something Cliff said a while ago. I mean, don't put the agency out of business, but don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try something because it's hard. I mean, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Okay, how about one more round of applause for everybody? And please continue the discussions here tonight on the cruise. If you want to drop a business card in, we'll put you to the listserv and we can continue the conversation there. Also, in New Orleans, pre-convention training is going to be focusing on creating businesses and other types of employment solutions at chapters. And I'm going to close by giving this to Karen for some administrative stuff. Thank you, everybody.